Alright, my name is Sean Fallon, and you're listening to episode 18, Chuck. Welcome to From First to Last. Where everybody knows. Hello again and welcome again. My name is Sean Fallon. This is From First to Last. Today we're recording live from the Intersect, where I'm joined by reluctant secret agent Daniel Chadwick Shubat. How are you, Daniel?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm very good. What TV show did you choose for us today?
I chose the TV show Chuck, which ran from 2008 until 2013, I believe, if I have my knowledge up to speed, which I think I do.
That's it. That's exactly the thing. I was about to say that. I was saying 91 episodes and those years, so that's fantastic. So, Chuck, what is your experiences with Chuck?
Well, okay, this is going to be a funny story for you, but when I first started watching it, I was in high school, and I was at this Christian school that I was put in, and they really didn't like me there. I got suspended 4 times before I got asked not to come back.
Right.
All for very stupid reasons. So it's kind of just like a world against Daniel situation. But after I left, I was never again suspended, or even I didn't even get attention. So I was a good kid after that, and I wasn't really a bad kid before. But on my second suspension, I got a week. And I had that week off, so I was really bored because my whole family was in Belgium. So I found this on Netflix, and I just started watching it, and I got absolutely hooked. I think I've probably gone through all 5 seasons twice, probably watched a couple episodes more than that. I just, it's probably been one of my favorite shows ever, probably. It's probably up there.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so this was an interesting one. This was similar to like Friday Night Lights and Clone Wars, and I hadn't seen any of this. What happened to me was I've told this story a few times for a few different things. Like I used to live in Istanbul, and the school I was teaching at was sort of a little bit off the beaten track. It was like up a hill, just a little bit out of the main drag. So we used to get picked up in this like long white van, and it'd be like a 35-40 minute drive up the hill. And doing that twice a day for 3 years, that's how I got into podcasts, and I read a ton of books and stuff like that. And I started just like putting TV shows on my iPad, and I just watched them, an episode up and down or whatever. And what happened was like I'd run out of shows, so I got hold of like 3 or 4 pilots, and I was like, right, I'll watch these, and whichever one sort of wins me over, I'll watch the whole show. Mm-hmm. And I tried to watch the Chuck one, and there was something wrong with it, and it cut out after the first 5 minutes. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll try again tomorrow. But the one I watched after that was Fringe, and I got hooked on Fringe, and that just took me all the way to the end. So Chuck sort of fell by the wayside just by bad luck, really.
Yeah.
More than anything else. But it was something that was always on the radar, because I was always reading stories about how they were trying, it looked like it was on the bubble, and then they'd revive it with like, didn't they send sandwiches or something to the network, or there was a couple of different campaigns?
Yeah, they did. The first campaign they had was the fans. They were just going to do a 1 season, 13 episode like season, and that was going to be it. But fans loved it so much that they sent thousands upon thousands of messages. And then season 2 did really well. Season 3 it kind of took a little bit of a dive. So what the cast and crew did is they all every day they sent like lunch to like the top executives, just saying, "Keep us, please."
Okay, that's pretty good. That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. Bit of bribery.
Yeah, and it worked, and we got 5 seasons of this goodness. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, what is it that appealed to you about Chuck? What is it you like about it?
Well, I felt like it was very original. Like, obviously, it took from a lot of, different nerdy aspects. Like, it's a really great show if you're a nerd or you're a geek or you're someone who just loves popular culture, especially Star Wars, Star Trek, gaming, all that, which I do. But also, it's just so enjoyable. Like, it has this kind of story arc that goes full circle from episode 1 to episode 93 or wherever it ends, And like I don't know, you probably noticed this. I think we're going to talk about this a little later, but like
Hmm.
there's one scene in episode 1 that is almost completely replicated in the last episode of season 5.
Yeah.
And it's just this show really comes full circle, and I really love that. And it was just so many great characters that you could dig into. Great acting too, and like anything that has Adam Baldwin in, I am down for, because ever since like Firefly, I
Mm.
just I can't get enough of Adam Baldwin. Like he has to act more, he has to get into more movies, like big movies, because he has like that serious type of humor that I just love.
Yeah, he's obviously, yeah, he's fantastic in Firefly. I love his character.
Yeah.
Like, he is great. What did you think rewatching this first episode? How was that experience?
I think it was just as enjoyable, if not more, as I did it last time. Like, just every time you rewatch a show, like Friends is another one, Breaking Bad. There's lots of
Mm.
shows like that like I'll rewatch occasionally, and this was just a like as soon as I found out, as soon as we kind of put this in stone, I was like, yes, I cannot wait. So 2 nights ago, I watched both of them back to back, and it was just a lot of fun. Like just brought back memories, just like quotes that you were like completely forgot about, and now they're stuck in your head for like 2 weeks. Like
Mm.
yeah, it was a really fun experience for sure.
Well, that's good. Well, the one thing that sort of stood out to me was and this sort of went from the first to the last episode. It's, I think, like, because if you see any of the marketing, any of like the posters and stuff, it's sort of marketed as more of like an action spy story,
Yeah,
but it sort of follows the track of a rom-com.
it
It did
does.
feel as though if you took out the spy elements and just had legitimately, like, when Sarah goes in and you've got the idea of Chuck is heartbroken over this girl that's left him, and everyone's trying to get him back in the game, and then he can't, and then he meets Sarah, and so on and so on. And you could follow that into a show without spying that's just like a cool rom-com between these two sort of mismatched people. But
Yeah,
it's interesting that, like, they commit wholeheartedly to that premise, and then just add the spy stuff on top of that rather than the other way around,
yeah, yeah.
which I think makes it quite a sweet, fun show.
It is, yeah. And if you watch the whole thing, if you ever do get a chance to, like it really does that really well, and
Mm.
it's so, it's like I think ever since I saw that show, like Yvonne Strahovski has been probably one of my biggest celebrity crushes, because she is like beautiful, but she
Mm.
is so kick-ass. Like she is like one of the best female characters I've seen on the small screen yet. Probably is the best female character I've seen on the small screen.
And Australian as well.
Yes, yes,
So
you gotta love
these
Australia.
you have, man. You gotta definitely. I'm telling you, Australian girls are amazing. Australian women are amazing, even. Yeah, no, and she was ace, and sort of just watching this episode in a vacuum, I felt like it really put the pieces nicely in place
It did.
for the future. And then I was I really enjoyed the ending, like watching it, and then having, like, you've got Sarah, and he has the little flash of her killing those two dudes, and then it's like, the new guy who's come to work at the Big Buy, Best Buy, Big Buy,
Best Buy, Best Buy.
Best Buy.
Yeah.
Like the guy, the Buy More. That's what it's
Buy more. Sorry, yeah, sorry. Best Buy. I was just thinking. Wait, that sounds wrong.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, it's was it Buy More and Large Mart.
Buy more and
I
large
enjoyed
mart.
that a
There
lot.
we go. Yeah.
And yeah, just at the end where it's sort of like, oh, you got to train the new guy, and it's Adam Baldwin. You're like, okay, this is a premise that's got legs. I can definitely see this having, there's wheels here that are turning,
hmm
which is great. And
And
yeah, no, and I think they commit well to sort of, like, I noticed this definitely in the last episode as well. They've got this, like, it's a rom-com, then they add spy elements to it, but on top of it, it was sort of, there was a nice vein of, like, silliness, like the idea of them diffusing the bomb with the porn virus.
oh,
It's,
brilliant.
genius. And obviously that is, they liked that idea so much in the first episode, they completely did it again in the last episode, which is a cool little callback. But we will come definitely to callbacks in a moment.
Oh yeah, because there's
Um,
so many callbacks.
oh yeah, no, it was crazy. When I was started watching this, I was a bit sort of apprehensive when it came up and it said directed by what's this, McG, Mac G.
MCG. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like, oh, dude, why, man?
You don't
But
like MCG?
not a fan. I think everything, like, I haven't seen anything he's done that's been good, and the fact that that's the name he's sort of picked to be represented
Oh,
by,
okay. Yeah.
like, just call yourself whatever his name is, something McGinty, isn't it, or something, or just change your name. If you don't like
Yeah.
your name, just change it. But just like, I don't know, I just something about that just really annoys me, and it just puts an idea in my head of who that guy is.
Yeah.
But that's probably just personal preference.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I did definitely enjoy I enjoyed this episode and would be intrigued to see where it goes. Really, I'm trying to think if there's anything else really for me, because it's hard, like, having no sort of prior knowledge of the show to go in blind, because I don't know, like, where it's going to go from here, and if it does get really good, or character, because obviously that's the thing that you find with a pilot. You can watch it and be like, oh, I really like this character, and then talk to someone like, oh yeah, that character gets dropped very quickly. Like that actor moved on and got recast or whatever.
No, but
Um,
if you look at like all the characters you loved in Chuck,
hmm.
like in the first episode, you will see a lot of them in the future. Like they stay around, which is great.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Like, oh, yeah, we can, like, to talk about the last episode. It was, I was really surprised because very often you find that by the time you get to the last episode, the main cast has been depleted and extended. Like watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you watch that first episode and you've got like this sort of set, Buffy, Willow, Cordelia, Xander, and Giles, say. But then by the time you get to the last episode, some of those characters are gone. There's a ton more characters. Relationships have changed. Goodies have become baddies, and so on and so on. Whereas this one was interesting because when it got to the last episode, everyone was still there, but they'd all sort of, well, because I was really surprised. Like at the end, everyone was a spy. It was just like everyone was a spy. Everyone was a computer hacker. Linda Hamilton was there. It's like, oh, this show goes through some stuff over the course of 90 episodes, like, which is amazing.
It does, and the amount of like great people they had, like actor wise. Timothy Dalton, for crying out loud, played a
Mm.
villain in season 4, and he was like probably the best, like one of the best villains I'd seen in ages. Like he's a better villain than he is like a good guy, and lots
Yeah.
of people
Oh,
see that if they watch Penny Dreadful. I guess he is kind of like plays with that villain hero line, but
oh, very much so. Like his character in Penny Dreadful is like a heroic shit character, if that makes any sense. Like
yeah,
he's big
exactly.
game hunter, but
Yeah,
yeah,
there we
big
go.
the great white hunter. But he's the hero. But some of the stuff he's done in his past is unforgivable. That kind
Oh
of
yeah.
thing. But yeah, I just sort of just having a bit of a look, and I saw like Tony Hale's in it, Chevy
Yeah.
Chase, Linda Hamilton.
Oh,
Um,
Chevy Chase is another villain.
oh, is he? Oh,
Yeah,
see, I've been intrigued to see that.
yeah. It was really interesting. Like some people would be like, "Oh, I don't like that," but it was actually really well done.
Well, that's cool because I mean Chevy Chase is a bit of a dick, but I do like to see him get work,
Yeah,
which is
I love how you put it. He is a bit of a dick, but no one will say that. So I'm glad you put it that way.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I mean, this last episode, before we get into it, like as a finale, there is that sort of thing like where some TV shows will do, like I've started calling like a victory lap finale. So they'll have like a clip show, or it'll be very solidly callbacky. But
Yeah,
some shows pull it off. Like I felt like this show did it well because it was very much in story.
yeah,
It made sense that all these
it did.
callbacks would happen.
Yeah, it did.
Whereas, like, I don't know if you've seen the finale of the X-Files.
Yeah,
That was very much just sort of, clip shows and nothing, and didn't forward anything. It was just sort of like, hey guys, remember when this show was good? Here you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Whereas this definitely made sense. So when you watched this, how was your? I mean, when you watched this the first time you ever saw it, what was your opinion of it?
Okay, well, I think season 5 for me was a bit of a letdown
Hmm.
compared to all the other seasons. Like, it still had its great moments, but compared to all the other seasons, it was not as good, if you get what I'm saying. But
Okay.
um, last episode, there were a couple problems with it. Like, I didn't like the villain in the last season. That was my main problem with it. And he kind of took away from what I was hoping would be the main focus of the last episode, which would be the gang. And
Yeah.
sometimes he took away from that, which I didn't like. But I think what you said really makes sense to me. Like it did some callbacks, and some were a little cheesy, but they were good cheesy, and some were really, really well done. Like they were like, wow, they've come full circle, and you know what? Like we can believe in a happy ending, and like now, like the reason people still want a Chuck season 6 or a movie or something is because they all want to see what happens. But like I'm not worried, because I'm like, you know what? They went full circle, so I feel like it's gonna end up, with Sarah and Chuck back together, and like it looked like they were, almost back together in a way. So I really, really liked. I like that was the high point of season 5 was the finale for sure.
Well, cool. I mean, and that sort of goes back to what we we're saying at the start. Like the ending, ending isn't like the big spy finale. The ending was like, the kiss on the beach, which again is very rom-commy.
Yeah, it is, but it's a good rom-commy. Like before I came on, I was watching Notting Hill. That's a rom-com that I can I can dig. Like there's a lot of crappy rom-coms out there, but I feel like this and Chuck really knows how to play the rom-com well. Like it's in a way where guys can really get into it and really invest in this relationship.
Yeah, I think that's interesting you say that, because like I imagine Chuck would be a show that had a quite predominantly male fan base.
Yeah,
like
but surprisingly, it got really female by the end as well.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, like, because when I actually looked at the creator of the show, obviously it's the dude who did the OC, then he did Chuck, and then he did Gossip Girl.
Yeah.
So he definitely knows how to sort of jump audiences, if you know what I mean, and sort of keep. Like, it's interesting, like, I can imagine this show being, it looks on the surface quite a boys' show, but it's also very romantic and a good rom-com. And it's got the chops of being created by the OC guy. So you imagine the audience. The audience I'd sort of have in my head, I think, is very different to the audience it probably actually has.
Yeah,
which is a good feat.
Yeah. I'm definitely in agreement with you there.
Yeah, and like you say, it was a good episode that sort of everyone got a little piece. Everyone got a little bit of something. Everyone got a happy ending to a point, and everyone got something to do to a point.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a happy ending for some, because like it's still like pretty bittersweet at times. But everyone got something to do. Like I was hoping that some people would kind of take a background, like Lester and Jeff. Yes, like of course those guys, like you get to love them, even though they're the creepiest people in the world. You do get to love them as you go on, but I think that like especially like Chuck, Sarah, Morgan, Ellie, Awesome, those guys, they really deserved a little more than like just a look, and some of them did get a little more than a look. So I was happy. It's really hard to even such a big cast out, so I have a lot of respect for the makers behind the scenes,
Yeah, that's it. Because I mean, doing like a finale like that on an ensemble show, you've got to sort and a plot based one as well. Like if this was sort of like a character study, it's quite easy because you just wrap it up with, whatever. Everyone just sort of has an ending.
Yeah.
But this one as well, you've got to sort of wrap up the intersect plot and all the sort of spy stuff, and then try and give as much of the ensemble a good farewell. I mean, again, I think the comparison would be Buffy. Buffy, in the end, like the finale for that, goes really for the big fireworks ending. So you don't really get like a very quiet moment with each character having an ending. It's sort of like, no, let's do this as a big plot one.
Yeah.
Whereas, let's say maybe Friends. Friends is one where obviously the show's not about plot; it's about the situations and the characters, whatever. Yeah. So each character gets a specific ending, and I mean, it's definitely like a tightrope to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Chuck did well. I mean, I think, like I say, the finale is very much the bad guy's there, so they shoot him.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now let's focus on the actual thing, which is the promise that the first episode makes is that Chuck's a bit of a lovable loser who's
Yeah.
unlucky in love, and the finale sort of gives you an ending to that story.
Yeah.
Which, going from first to last, like these two episodes together, make really good bookends. Like they are, it's a fantastic. If you've watched this show from the very start, I feel like that finale would be rewarding. It just rewards you for having watched it.
Yeah, for 100%. And also, it's great to see General Beckman show up at the end too, because she kind of took like a bit of a smaller part. Season 4 and season 5, she kind of because they opened their own sort of private security spy agency almost. So she took a bit of a smaller role as the seasons went on. Like it was kind of interesting. So it was almost full circle in a way because she went from like a small role to a really big role to finally a small role but very influential at the end. So like this show is full of character arcs that are put like tied neatly in a bow, and I really like that. But my question kind of for you as someone who hasn't watched the entirety, like what moments, like what parts really stood out for you though?
Well, going back to like that first episode, and again that sort of rom-com thing. So you have like a few scenes that are like when Sarah's getting ready to go out, so she's just kind of there getting dressed, but it's like knives in the shoes, knives in the hair, and all that sort of stuff. And it's I felt that was a good sort of subversion of that trope of like the getting ready for the date scene and like the getting dressed montage, and she's armed to the teeth, and he's like, oh, should I wear this shirt, should I do this tie and all that, and she's just cool, calm, collected, ready to go.
The roles are reversed. It's great.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's not like all. Well, it's great like in terms of a spy film as well, or a spy story. The dude is all a flutter and a damsel in distress, and the female character is all put together, suave, cool. Which I think you don't see enough of that. It tends to be if you've got so for example, Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation.
Yeah.
Like the female character in that, Ilsa Faust, is very cool and very put together and an equal match for the spy, the male spy. But he's also super cool as well.
Yeah.
He's not, he's not the sort of civilian character who's being dragged along. Everyone's cool as everyone else. So I thought that was a cool kind of subversion. For the final episode, I was really happy with the porn virus getting used again. I don't know why that tickled me so much. And as soon as they found the bomb and he opened the case and it was the laptop, I was like, oh, use the porn virus.
Yeah, that's
Straight
exactly
away.
what I was thinking. Exactly.
Porn.
Yo, people are going to be listening to this show and they're going to be like, okay, Loki, I can't listen to this anymore. He's saying porn way too many times.
That's it. It's gone too far. Advisory sticker. And also, I was very happy. Like, I'm a bit of a sucker for like a kind of like a silly gag. So when he's like trying to stop the bad guy and he shoots the gun into the air and he downs the helicopter, that gave me a chuckle. Like as soon as he fired the gun in the air, I was like, oh, as he hit the helicopter, and it was like, we're going down, brace. It's like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's good. I'm happy with this. I'm happy with how this has turned out. Because even though like for me, you get an idea that Chuck goes from obviously a nobody whose biggest aspiration in life is possibly to be assistant manager of a department store, to the end where he's a lot more capable and seems to know his stuff, but even then he's still not quite there yet. He's still accidentally doing stupid things. Yeah. He's not quite the sort of refined spy that the others are, which I thought was good. I think that was kind of true to that character, that even though he's had all this stuff in his head and all these people helping him, he's still a bit of a fuck up, which is good. That makes him relatable.
Oh yeah, he's a major fuck up as you go on. Like I guess there's no better way to put it, but he fucks up so much stuff as you go on. You're like, how is this guy like a spy at the end? But you're like, okay, I kind of see it, but you're like still as like this super crazy cool spy. He's so bad at what he does sometimes. And it's really funny because as he gets better and better, what happens in season 4 is that they get a new fuck up, and his name is Morgan Grimes, which is the best thing ever. Like, if you watch one episode, there's this episode where it's Morgan's first time in the field, and Morgan gets scared at the end. So how Chuck psychs him up is he does the Darth Vader theme. He's like dun 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 dun
Okay.
dun, and it's the nerdiest moment ever. But it gets Morgan so pumped, and then he goes in and goes completely against the plan and has an Italian accent. It's just this show is full of so many funny things that you don't expect. And
Yeah.
it really, when we were talking before about like how Sarah's completely polar opposite, like the roles are switched in this show. They did
Yeah.
this, 8 years before it was cool. Like 2016, it's the year of the women. We've had
Yeah.
fantastic female performance all around. Not as many good male performances. And
Yeah.
last year we had Furiosa and Ilsa, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
rather brilliantly. It was so cool what they did with this show, and it was groundbreaking in more ways than one. And a lot of people have not seen this show or not heard of it. But
Mm.
if anyone asked me, what's a show that I should watch that I would like enjoy the whole way through, and I will say this immediately because Friends is not everyone's cup of tea. Breaking Bad takes its time. It's two
Mm.
seasons where it's pretty slow at the start, so some people wouldn't be able to really put up with that. But like this show, just from the get go, like I don't know what you got from it, but from the get go for me, it was just like, boom! Like I went through 2 seasons in that week.
Well, it was definitely like it had. I do have a note, and I was trying to remember what it was in relation to, and the note just says it's in the final episode. And it just says, "What the fuck is this show?" I was like, "What? What is that a reference to?" And I was like, "Oh, it's when the orchestra stopped and Jeffrey and Lester come out and do Take on Me." And I was like, "What? What am I even watching at this point?"
Yeah.
Like, I do appreciate something a show that's willing to just go, you know what, we find this funny, you might find it funny as well, let's have it. And just has, because obviously that scene makes no sense. Why is there a smoke machine? Where did they get all the equipment from? How have they changed clothes? Doesn't matter. It's funny, it's a good victory lap for those characters. It pays off later when the German record exec just shows up at the shop. And it's like, I am powerful record executive from Germany. You come with me now. And they are, oh, cool. And they all both start crying and they leave. I was like, this, I don't know what this is, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah,
I'm very happy with how this has turned out.
I know. I'm glad you wrote that note because I think a lot of people would think that, especially if they watched like the first episode and then the last episode. Like if you watched all the other episodes, you would get a little more context and you'd be like, "Oh, now it makes sense. They're just two mentally, maybe not handicapped people, but mentally challenged people, especially
Men
Jeff."
children.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're pretty. Like Jeff is funny because there's a great little story that you find out at the end. Do you think you'd finish this show, or do you want me to tell you a little bit?
Yeah, you can tell me, it's fine.
Okay, well, at the end they find out that Jeff is not crazy because he's crazy. It's because he's been inhaling carbon monoxide in his naps in his car every day. That's the only reason he's crazy.
Jesus. Like, I like that. I like
Yeah,
that.
and like that's after 5 seasons. So you're like gone through 5 seasons and thinking, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And then you get to season 5 and you're like, oh, okay, great. And then Lester turns into this psychopath and he wants the old Jeff back, so he tries to carbon monoxide poison him. And he goes to jail with Casey, who's in jail for killing someone.
This I gotta look into.
Yes, you do, man. You have to like if you have some time, if you have if you have like a week to yourself and you need a fun show to watch or you're like sick, this is definitely worth it. Oh.
That definitely, that was how I got into Fringe. I had the flu and I just had nothing to do and I just watched because the first season of Fringe is a little bit shaky and I just burnt through it in like 2 days just in a flu fever. And then it was actually quite, because I sort of dream about it and I'd be waking up and I'd be like, wait, is this parallel universe? What's just completely waste. Great way to watch a show. Just, lie on the couch, don't move, get better, and watch it. So I'll look forward to the next time I'm ill, I
Yeah,
guess.
I know, but I know you say that and you laugh, but it's true. Like, I just wonder how people survived. No wonder so many people died from illnesses when, like, in the 50s and 60s and before that, they didn't have TV to watch. So
That's
what
it.
were they supposed to do? They were just supposed to lie there. Maybe read a
Yeah,
book, but a book, it hurts your eyes after a while because you have to,
yeah.
like, actually, like, read and do stuff. So now, people can get better a lot easier.
That is very true. I say that to my when my wife gets ill, she'll just sort of say to me, find me a TV show. So I like so I think the last time I was like, oh, I've heard really good things about this show, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So she just stayed in, lay on the couch, and I think she watched 8 episodes of it, and she was back to work the next day, and with a song in her heart, and yeah, it was all good.
Great. Yeah, no, and also I recommended this show to my parents, and like I watched the first episode with them, and a couple scenes were a bit awkward because they're like,
Hmm.
Daniel, why are you making us watch this? Because my mom had to like hide my dad's eyes as Sarah was getting dressed, and I was like, yes, I love this. But I'm just kidding. I appreciate her beauty,
There you
and
go.
the show does too. They really appreciate it. Sometimes it's very funny, but after that they got hooked, and I think they watched all 5 seasons. And if my 40 plus parents can enjoy it, anyone can.
Looking at it from first to last, I do. It's interesting, like because obviously this is what I do all the time is just like looking at shows and how they evolve and so on. And a lot of watching this last episode was oh yeah, just trying to like pick out the pieces of like how it had changed.
Hmm.
And I was just fascinated of just like how like we said how much they kept the ensemble, but also as well how involved all the members of the ensemble were. So like because in that first episode, the older sister character, the
Older, yeah,
sister older, yeah,
yeah,
and her boyfriend, Awesome or whatever, I had a feeling like okay they were good characters but they felt too much like they were going to be the sort of the downers of the show, like they were going to be the ones who were like constantly I can't think of what but the actual like, of an example of a
no, I
character
think
but
I know
just
what you mean. Like they would be the people that would like get down on Chuck, and when they found
yeah
out they would freak out. Yeah, yeah, I understand what you mean. And
and
luckily,
then
like I had the exact same thought when I first saw it. Like I was like, Captain Awesome, he seems like one of those fuck boys that you meet in high
yeah
school. But luckily, they really, you get to see a different side of those characters that you don't expect, and that's why I think hopefully why they kept them around too.
that's it. And like I did read a bit of well sorry to yeah so to have them sort of at the end be very involved in the sort of spy plot, it's like cool, I'm happy with that. And also I did read on IMDb like the original plan for Captain Awesome was that he would turn out to be like an enemy spy at the end of the first or the second season, or maybe I think it was the first season he was supposed to turn out to be like a double agent. But they just loved the character, and the actor was so good, and he had such good chemistry with everyone else. They were like, "Nah, we got to keep this guy a goodie. It doesn't work to make him a villain now."
Yeah,
And
that would have been heartbreaking.
yeah, so that's it. And I think that's definitely the because I love stories like that. You know, it's like Breaking Bad. They were supposed to kill off Jesse in the first season, but Aaron Paul, they just loved working with him, and he was so cool, and he had such good chemistry with Bryan Cranston that they keep him around. And I can't imagine that show without him.
Yeah.
You know, just like it's absurd. And you do see a lot of that, like different shows where the plan is to dump a character and the actor just manages to transcend, and that's always good to see. And this character, like Captain Awesome, even for the brief periods I saw of that character, there was even like a character arc for him from that first episode to the last episode. It wasn't huge, but the first episode he was definitely a figure of derision. He was like, oh, this guy, you know, like you say, this jock, frat boy, fuck boy,
Yeah.
idiot.
Yeah.
But then the end of the show, he was part of the team, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I like this guy. I think he's got something to add to the table, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And he even had like a pretty good line where he's talking to Linda Hamilton, and she's got the gun, and he's covering the baby's eyes. And he's like, "Now we talked about this," and she kind of hides the gun behind her back. I was like, "Oh, that's a cool, sweet line. It invents a sort of lived-in world, which I always like to see."
Yeah, yeah, and also like this was a character that was quite interesting. But I was wondering, you met him in the first episode. What did you think of Bryce Larkin?
So Bryce Larkin's is it Matt Bomer
Matt Bomer, yeah,
from Magic Mike
from
XXL?
and White Collar, yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, yeah. I liked. I like that whole thing of him because I couldn't piece him together in my head because I don't think I had enough information. So he was sort of like I like the fact that he was like the James Bond
Hmm.
and he sort of like stole the thing and then he parkoured out. But then Adam Adam Baldwin kills him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Doesn't he? Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, so that guy's a goodie and Adam Baldwin's a baddie. But then as the show went on, I was like, oh, now I don't know. Is Adam Baldwin a baddie? Is Bryce a baddie? And then the last scene is like Sarah's got the going through her phone and she's got photos of him. I was like, no, I don't know what this is at all. I'm completely lost because I couldn't tell if it. And then she at one point said he was a rogue agent. It's like, right, so has he betrayed them? Is Adam Baldwin a baddie? But then obviously the last episode, Adam Baldwin's clearly not a baddie. So that character, yeah, I just got completely lost.
Yeah, and that's obviously where the more watching you get to know more and more. But Bryce Larkin's quite an interesting character because well, he is the very definition of a double agent. Like
Okay.
he is all over the place. You never know what his character is like, and they in true Marvel style they actually bring him back,
Oh, okay.
and then kill him off again.
And then kill him off again, yeah, in true Marvel style.
Yeah, well, Marvel haven't really brought someone back and killed them off yet, so hopefully they'll do that sometime soon.
Yeah, one day.
One day, yeah, but yeah, well, let's just hope in Infinity War they'll just kill a bunch of people because if they make that movie, they have to kill off a couple characters because if they're facing just the greatest threat they've ever faced and no one dies, like what happened in Civil War, it's just completely
Yeah.
useless.
Yeah, that was to go off Chuck a sec. Yeah, I was quite shocked by that because I had it in my head. Definitely, I guess if you're listening to spoilers for Civil War, but I don't know. Yeah,
Just
I
put
was
it in.
definitely just to make sure. So jump, like just skip later. Yeah, no, I definitely thought Civil War, Iron Man, or Captain America, one of them was going to die, and I'd like those two characters. I didn't want them to die, but I was quite disappointed at the end. I was like, oh, okay. So again, sort of signing on for more films, just sort of kind of cuts through drama, I guess, which is a bit disappointing. But like you say, Infinity War, I'm sure it's going to be an utter bloodbath.
Oh, I hope so. Like,
Yes.
and that's like I'm like you. Like, I love those characters, but in a way, we did see a bit of a death because we found out that Captain America is no longer Captain America. Like, he's just Steve Rogers. They're not. He's not gonna. Supposedly, he's not Captain America anymore. He's not in the suit. But I feel like as soon as Infinity War comes around, Iron Man's gonna call him and say, dude, I forgive you. I gotta have you back.
That's it. Well,
But
we shall see.
we shall see. You sound like a fellow Marvel fan, so I already like you more.
See, there you go. See, and this show, Chuck, is definitely for that sort of thing. There was a lot of, I mean, that first episode, there was references to Call of Duty. There was a Batman thing. Obviously, the whole thing's like a riff on James Bond.
Oh yeah.
Just all that stuff, and it's cool when that's done well. Like
Yeah.
it's bad when it's done. Obviously, it's bad when it's done badly. But like, I like to see it when, obviously, there's a difference between this and Big Bang Theory. There wasn't a point where they were just saying the names of things. It was integrated, and it was some stuff you had to work for, and all that. Like, I think that's been like obviously just finishing Stranger Things. That's been a big element of that was that you had to work for it to get the references. You had to know them. There wasn't a thing where they would just say to you, "Oh, doesn't this remind you of E.T.?" Like, no, if you've seen E.T., you'll get it. And the same, I found that the same with Chuck. Like, there were some scenes where I was like, "Oh, this reminds me of something," and I was having to like actually think it through and like remember like the dialogue and all that, which is
Yeah.
good. I think I do like that. I like when you have to work a little bit to get it.
Oh yeah, I'm completely in agreement there. And also, just there's a lot of quotable moments from the first episode. Now, like whenever I see like a blonde girl that looks like Vicky Vale, I'm like Vicky Vale, Vicky Vale. Doo-doo-doo-doo.
I know, I love that because when he sees and just like the phone and the clipboard just disappear, just
Yeah,
gone. Like, oh,
and
hello.
that's like I like as a like I feel like I could probably talk to girls better than Chuck can because he was pretty useless in that first episode. But
Yeah.
I feel like if there's like a girl drop dead gorgeous or like a really famous actress, you'd probably like I feel like I would react a little bit like that. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, just collapse, turn into utter pudding.
Like yeah, but I'm a single guy, you're a married guy, so I'm sure you'd be calm, cool, and collected, right?
Yeah, no, you know me. I'm just always calm. Just sort of, as soon as anyone starts talking to me, I just kind of put my wedding ring in their face, like, sorry, ladies, taken, can't get me.
Oh, you must break a lot of girls' hearts, man.
Oh, of course, that's what I do. So one thing I did think was going to happen in the last episode of Chuck, and whether or not it would have been good or bad, is when she says at the end to him, "Tell me a story," and he starts telling her, obviously the story of how they met. I was sort of assuming it was going to like fade out at that point and stop, and it was like, okay, so it makes the show into a closed loop. So you'd be like, okay, so the story that he's telling is the show that we've just watched. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, I get what you mean, yeah.
But instead, I think they went for the better one. I think, they had that cool thing of like, because I think going back on like we were saying at the start, like the victory lap idea and the X-Files, where it's just like clip, 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 clip all the way through. This was like, yeah, a couple of cool little callbacks, like the Wiener. I can't even think of the name of the
Irina Demova porn virus.
Yes, and then the restaurant with the sausages, and then doing the tango and all that.
Wienerlicious, yeah.
Wienerlicious, thank you. And them being like callbacks and Chuck sort of saying like, oh yeah, we've done this before and so on.
Yeah.
But then in the end, just to be like, right, we've got one more minute of the show left, and they just sort of show those cool images, like I say, sticker with the rom-com thing.
Yeah.
Just romantic images of like Sarah and Chuck, and then they have the big kiss in the sunset on the beach, and that's the end of the show. And I think even watching in like an hour and a half of this entire show, I was really satisfied with that. I was like, oh cool, what a lovely ending, because obviously we don't need to know what happens next. I'm assuming she gets all her memories back. I'll take that, and that's it. They go off into the sunset. Be that as it may, if there was another series of it, I might try and catch up and watch.
Cool. Yeah. And what did you think of Casey? Because I don't think we've talked about Alex Baldwin enough, but it's I really liked how he kind of reacted to his daughter and then Morgan getting together. Yeah. That was like kind of a nice arc for him.
Yeah, that was definitely like his character had taken such a big jump from that first episode,
but
not a complete sort of. He hadn't completely 180'd. He was still very much the same character, but it felt as though he'd sort of. It's a bit wanky, but he'd sort of grown as a character. So he was sort of like, yeah, sorry.
No,
so he
was
like
true.
So in the first episode, he was just like a machine, like just a dickhead spy machine.
Yeah.
And then the last episode, he was still that, but this sort of like other life kept like calling and pulling him. Like the phone did keep ringing, and then he has that whole conversation with Morgan, and then all that. And there was that sort of. It reminded me of something, and I cannot for the life of me think of what it is. But that sort of plot line where... Oh, no, it's on the... Actually, I don't know why. It reminded me of Cars just then. That's the wrong thing. Like, it reminded me of the end of Cars, but he's focused on the race, but he keeps flashing back to, like, Radiator Springs, but that's completely not the reference I'm looking for.
I like that. That's funny.
I can't think. But it is that sort of thing of like he's trying to be this thing, but he's not that anymore. He's changed, but he wants to still be that. Yeah.
Yeah, he like John Casey. He's a gun-loving, Ronald Reagan-loving, whiskey-loving man. And that is him. But like as he goes on, these people who are around him, Chuck, Morgan, Sarah, even Sarah, because Sarah was pretty ruthless at the start, but she had that. She had that really hard exterior around that soft heart. Casey, he was a very hard exterior and pretty hard heart, but the more and more he was around these people, the more and more he kind of grew as you went on. And like there are even moments like where when you first meet Casey, you would think, okay, this is a man who's you're never gonna see him vulnerable, but you do as you go on, and it's great. And just seeing him at the end, it was a really nice, like, kind of putting an end to his story in a way, but starting it as well. But then, starting Morgan's story with Alex, who is Casey's daughter, Casey's long lost daughter, and like Casey's story is very interesting too. But it was really nice seeing him become a different character while still staying the same Casey that we all love.
Yeah, no, that's good. That for this podcast, that. I like to see that, because there's a thing of like, if you've got 100 hours of television, the character should change a little bit, if anything. And it's always good to see that when you have, and that character again is another sort of like spy archetype, like the no nonsense, usually the no nonsense sort of like enemy agent who, and that idea of having him being like company man through and through, shoot first, ask questions later, and this bunch of haphazard nerds just like wear him down, and then he sort of discovers that there's more to just like killing enemies of America, which again is, I mean, it's a very simple bit of plot mechanics. Off the top of my head, I've got an image in my head of what I'm trying to think of. Like, there's definitely a movie or a TV show that does it as well. But it's effective. It's and if it's done well, and if the writing works, and Baldwin plays like Jane from Firefly is the same. That sort of character who is gruff, no nonsense, but develops a sort of, like you say, like they go from having a hard heart to having like a caramel center. Sort of like it changes as time goes on. It's gonna drive me absolutely insane trying to think of what I'm thinking of, and it's because I've got in my head of like someone, and it's children who like wears. It's like someone who goes around kicking ass, and children wear him down, and I cannot for the life of me think of what it is, and it's gonna drive me utterly insane. But
you're gonna remember as soon as we finish and give it.
As soon as we finish, it's gonna come to me. So I'll probably just try and like cut all of this out because it's probably not super entertaining to listen to, but we'll see.
It's up to you. Yeah. You're just trying to remember. That'll be like 20 minutes of the show. I'm just trying to remember this moment.
It's gonna come to me. I was even complaining about that on a different, like someone, I was just trying to listen to another podcast, like a movie podcast, and it opens up with two characters, two people talking, and then one of them is talking about a film, and he says, "Oh, it was in that magazine. I can't think of the name." And then he spends a good 7 minutes of the podcast Googling the magazine. Like, dude, cut this.
Yeah. Wait, he actually spends he publishes it like that.
Yeah. So I'm just listening to it, and I can just hear one guy going like, maybe it's called this, and the other one's like, no, it was something like, no. Do your research before, or don't mention it, or just cut so you know what it is.
Yeah, no, like that's what you do. You pause and you go, okay, look, I gotta check this. Like, I remember, I've heard a couple podcasts where someone will be like, okay, welcome to, and then they'll mess up, and they'll be like, and they'll leave the mess up in. And I'm like, what are you doing? If you're gonna, sure, there's like that fun stuff that you can do at the end of the year where you do outtakes. Like, I was on this podcast that did that. And the outtakes, I was involved in quite a few of them, and he was it was so hilarious because the way they would introduce it is they would like say, okay, count us down, and the female co-host would go 1, 2, 3, boobies, and then everyone would laugh and we'd have to do it again. But or she'd say dick or something, like a really just a rude word which we didn't expect, so it'd make us laugh. And it was so funny, like just listening to those outtakes, but they didn't put in the real show, and that's why the show is so great. And these outtakes just add to the show rather than take away if they were involved in. But we're ranting about bad podcasters.
I know we shouldn't.
We're not either, so we're fine.
That's it. We do the work. What I think what I was thinking of, definitely one of the things I was thinking of, Fury Road.
Oh yeah,
is a great example of that, because obviously Mad Max at the start is just, hard man. No, there's so many scenes where he puts people in danger out of like stubbornness. We won't put them on the war rig, and he's willing to leave them and so on. And then at the end, you do have that moment where he chases them on the motorbike and says, we can save everyone. We just got to barrel back through. And obviously that's genius. And I love that sort of character move of someone who is worn down, but in a good way. They're worn down by, again, I'm trying not to say wanky things, but they're worn down by love. Ugh, I am the worst today. But going back to Chuck, like having Adam Baldwin's character be essentially a weapon in the first episode, and then to have him in that final episode almost rebelling against that. You see him when he's like looking at the phone and it's Alex is calling him, and he keeps hanging up or he keeps canceling it. And Baldwin's got that sort of like scowly face that translates well, and you can hear his thoughts. Yeah, you can see his discomfort.
Oh yeah, for sure. Adam Baldwin, he's one of the best like no nonsense actors that I know, and I really love him for it too because like it's what makes his roles so enjoyable, and that's why I wish I would see him more because we don't see enough of him in shows anymore.
No, he's in that The Last Ship. Don't know what that is.
I don't know either.
It's one of those shows like that's on its third season. Never heard of it. I just saw Turn, Washington's Spies was on its fourth season.
Holy
no
shit.
idea. Hell on Wheels, 5 seasons. Where are these shows? How do they exist?
I have no clue,
idea.
man.
They must just have that just like they must either be super cheap to make, though I doubt they are because they're all historical, or I don't know. They just have like that built-in fan base that I just do not cross paths with.
Probably
no idea.
not. Yeah, I don't know like a lot of people that watch Hell on Wheels a lot. But Turn is finishing this season. I think this is his last season.
All right. Well, I found that show because I wanted to see who the baddie was in the final episode, and it's Angus McFadden who's in that, and he was Robert the Bruce in Braveheart. That's how I knew him, like a Scottish dude. Right. Anything else you'd like to add about Chuck?
Anything else to add about Chuck? How can I put this? It is one of the most fun shows I've ever seen, and anyone who is looking for a show right now, they should go no further. Like, there's nothing else that you could replace with this that is not going to be as fun to watch. Like, yes, Breaking Bad, one of the greatest shows of all time. I'm never going to deny that. True Detective Season 1, fantastic as well. But this is an unequivocally fun show. Like, I challenge anyone to find a show that's as fun as this that's not a sitcom.
Well, I mean, that's the thing as well, like, because sometimes, Breaking Bad, True Detective, Fargo, like, all great shows. But sometimes you do just want, like, I think that's why I enjoyed, like, Fringe so much and X-Files back in the day. Like, you want something that's going to have, like, because it's like a story of the week type thing with an overarching plot. And sometimes you just need that. I want to turn something on and just be like, right, this is a beginning, a middle, and end. It takes me a little bit further in the plot. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And something that's fun, and something that's romantic, and something's got good characters, and it's funny. What's not to like?
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly there.
Also, the character I was thinking of was Han Solo.
Ah, yeah, that's good. That's a good... Okay, now you could just edit that part in, and you'll be fine.
That's it. Just be like, Han Solo.
Han Solo.
That's it. So, Daniel, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, people can find me on iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher. I like to get it all up everywhere. At the Get Real Movies podcast. So it's GETREELMOVIES. So I'm quite punny. Instead of saying real, as in REAL, I say real as in like a film reel. So we talk about movies. I just got a new co-host on, and we're taking a kind of different route. The great thing is that we're accredited with all the major distributors here in Canada, so we started getting prizes to give out on the podcast, so we get to do that. And we're starting to include interviews as well, and I'm attending the Toronto International Film Festival, so I'm going to get some interesting interviews there, including an interview with Mr. Paul Verhoeven, which will be a very fun interview to do, I'm sure.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. I'm really jealous. That's cool.
Yeah. So definitely tune into that. And I also have the blog, which is just getrealmovies.com, spelled the exact same as the podcast. And I have a bunch of writers from across Canada who write reviews on pretty much every movie that comes out each week. So and we get some classic ones and some cool features as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm glad I got to come on the podcast because I've listened to a couple of your shows, the ones that I really wanted to hear. Some of them I haven't listened to because I haven't watched the shows and I still want to. Yep. But once I heard your voice and heard you're British, I was like, okay, I'm fine with that because I was born in Liverpool.
Oh, no way! That's where my family's from.
Oh, awesome! Yeah. So that's where I was born. Sadly, because of the whole Brexit thing, it looks like I have to give up my citizenship because I'm only allowed 2. But England has a very special place in my heart, and I'm just I'm sad that I lost my accent, but I think I'm also glad because it's not the nicest accent in the world, is it?
It's I found because my accent's been blunted by I taught overseas for like 10 years and I
Yeah.
now live in Australia. If I have a few beers or I get quite excited, it does come out like there's a few hard K's in the way I talk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it's definitely one that I've heard people say, oh, it's not nice, but it always just reminds me of like my great aunties and my nan and my mum and dad and stuff like
Oh,
that. So
for
it's
me
got
too.
that. But sometimes you do. I think that for me, kind of having the experience in England, there's worse accents.
Oh, yes. Oh,
I,
for sure.
I won't alienate anyone and name names,
No,
but there's
don't.
some
Yeah.
accents that I hear and I'm like, oh God, good Lord.
God help us. Yeah, no, but whenever I get really excited when I'm watching football, like I used to watch, whenever I watch Steven Gerrard, I'd be like, "It's fucking Steven Gerrard, lads!" And like I would go fucking nuts. Like I would go like, oh,
Wow.
and people would laugh so hard. Like when I was watching football. And I'm talking about the real football, not the American football here, just in case any Americans are listening. That is
Yeah.
not football. That should be called egg ball. And I'm a Canadian
Egg hand.
saying this too. Egg hand. There we go. But
I don't know why.
I don't. Yeah, I know. But that's a better name than football, considering they use their feet twice. But don't get me on that because I will rant for an hour about how football is a bad name for American football.
Yes. Okay.
But we were watching a Liverpool game when I was 14, and this was when I had invited my friends over to my house for the first time. They saw a side of me that they had never seen in school. I think it scarred them for like the next month because they were like really scared of me for the next month because I was going, "You fucking wanker ref, you're so full of shit." Like I go all British mode. It's quite funny. And they were really scared because I think I used the C word like 10 times. And I
Yes.
don't want to say it on this show because, if we have some American viewers listening, they could easily get offended. But in England, that's like calling someone bitch here, right?
Yeah, no, it's same in Australia. Like
Yeah.
it depends where you are, but like if I go and spend time with like my we spend a lot of time in the country because my wife's family's from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you go to like rural Australia, actually in the city as well, you can quite comfortably drop it in conversation. Like it becomes it's such an interesting word because obviously it's horrible,
Yeah.
but you just find like you code switch and then you find yourself just using it for like really weird things, like for not like to insult someone, but just to sort of like point out how fast a car is. It's just like
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's
And
wild.
I was in Lyon and I met this Australian guy and I made him laugh a couple times. And he was like, "You're a funny cunt, eh?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like, "Yeah, I am. Thanks, man."
yeah. Thanks for
Like,
that.
yeah, no, but it's like a compliment sometimes. Like they never use it as like a full-on insult. Like that's when it gets offensive, but they use it as like a compliment sometimes. British people too, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll dig that. Like, I'm someone who's pretty relaxed about swearing. Like
That's
as
it.
long as you're not like telling someone that, like swearing at them and
Yeah,
just like I really couldn't be bothered. So
yeah, that's it.
I
Well,
think we're on the same page.
yes, we definitely are. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for coming on, Daniel.
No
This
problem.
was
Thank you for
enlightening.
inviting me. Yeah, it was very enlightening.
As usual, if you want a guest on the show, you can find me on Twitter at first to last pod, or email me directly at from first to last podcast at gmail.com. There's still a million shows to go. Every 10 episodes, we have a movie special. So episode 30's movie special hasn't been decided yet. So if you're getting quick on that one, you can choose either the first and last movie of a franchise, the first and last movie of a filmmaker's career, maybe an actor, maybe a writer, maybe a director, whoever. Pretty much that's pretty much how it's going so far. The next movie episode is going to be a franchise, but I'll save that for closer to the time. Otherwise, again, thank you very much, Daniel. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, and thank you guys for putting up with me for an hour. Most people would not be able to do that.
No, I think we've done well. There's I feel like this episode has been equal parts Chuck and equal parts ranting about what football should be called, podcasts, how podcasts should be made, and Scouse accents. So it's pretty much my day-to-day life. It's good. It's a good little window into how we live.
Yeah. The people are finally getting to know how us podcasters live lives because we're so different from normal people, aren't we?
That's it. It's behind the scenes. You're finally getting to look behind the curtain. Right. Well, with that in mind, my name is Sean Fallon. This has been From First to Last. Goodbye.